Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Always Something Garage. So today we're going to be finally getting back to the Raptor 250 build, and we're going to be finally putting that motor together. We actually accumulated all of the motor parts already, so it's just now putting the time and the effort and getting the motor back all together, and then we'll be slowly finishing up the 250 all together. We already got a bunch of other stuff other than the motor parts. We got a lot of parts already in for the 250. So once we get the motor finished, all to get back together and then in the frame, should be going by pretty fast and getting that thing ready to, its first startup. So let's get into the video.
All right, guys, you can see we got the cases all cleaned up. Took a little bit of time. It's a little bit of soda blasting, a little bit of Napa aluminum bright wheel cleaner is another good trick. These cases, if you remember seeing the pictures, were pretty bad. So all cleaned up, ready to go. We're gonna start working on this crank. I got the, as you can see, we got the crank bearings out of it. I did replace all of the transmission bearings. Didn't get them on video, but these are all new. It's a little cold out here today, but these are new. I did not replace these counterbalance bearings. They seem to be in real good condition, but case is all cleaned inside out. All the oil passage are clean. So we're going to get ready to go ahead and put these crank bearings in, show you how that's done, get the crank, transmission, and see if we can get these cases back together today. Okay, so we got the bearing in there. As you could see, I used heat, and I actually used the freezer. So we've all seen this trick. Is I've had the bearings in the freezer. Here in the garage, I got a small freezer. I put the bearings in. Actually, I've had them in there for probably a week. So they're deep frozen, so that was nice. You could usually put them in, if I'm doing something off the cuff, probably an hour, half an hour, an hour. It'll probably get them cold enough to shrink them a little bit. I heated up the case around that bearing race area. And as you can see, it dropped right in. Just had to tap it a little bit there with the hammer. But I'll let it cool down and let it all equalize out. So I don't want to flip it over. I've done that before. You flip the case over, move on to the next one, and that bearing either comes out or it comes out a small amount. So it's seated down in there, and let's get the other case over and we'll get the bearing in that one. Okay, so we got the other side in. As you could see what I was doing, I was heating that up. You want to get it to a temperature right about where you could drop water on it and it would boil. It's going to be over what, 212 degrees, 250. I like to get it around 250 degrees. You could use a temp gun. I've used that before, but normally I use some water. You can even just drop some spit on it, and once it sizzles, you know it's warm enough. And that bearing's been in the freezer, like I said, for definitely a week, 5 days. It dropped right in. Let it cool down, let everything equalize. That bearing will be locked in there, and then we can start pulling that crank in. Okay, so guys, this is what we got for the 250 Raptor. We're going with an aftermarket crank, hot rods crank. I like to use a lot of the factory stuff. Definitely in the Hondas, I like Honda cranks, but trying to save some money. In this bike, being Jade's bike, not going to be ridden super hard. Hot rods crank and their the original hot rod have always been good. So I think this will be fine for what we're doing. But yeah, in my Hondas, I love the Honda cranks. I do like the factory bearings. So we did put the Yamaha factory crank bearings. Definitely would do the same thing in the Hondas. Just seemed like I've had better luck with the you know, Japanese genuine OEM bearings. But so this is the new crank. We're going to get that put in there, and I'll show you how that goes, and hopefully it goes all well. Well, there you go, guys. As you can see, nice and smooth. It's nice having the right tools. This is made by Tusk, you know, crank installer. Basically, you have an adapter that goes on the end, and sometimes you have a bolt that goes in there, and sometimes you have actually a threaded stud. So you could use it either way. It's used for multiple bikes. This case actually has a flat surface, so you can actually pull on that or push on that case to pull the crank through. If not, you have these rods that can go on the outside of the case, and you can push on the you put two of them there, one on each side, and you can pull it through that way. It's very difficult if you don't have one. I've done it other ways. You could take the crank and you could freeze it. I've done that, put the crank in the freezer, and that shrinks, of course. That's why we're doing that with the bearings, is the freezing will shrink the crank down just so slightly, and then put a little heat on this crank bearing, not too much so it doesn't fall out, and you can almost get it to slide in just like the bearings that you saw me do where they dropped in. You just got to be careful. You don't want to flip it sideways and have the bearing go out, so you can put the crank in with this face down on a table or something, and I've done that before. But yeah, so that's the crank is installed. Let's start assembling the transmission and get these cases together. All right, guys, got the engine case in our little engine stand we got here. I got it flipped up on its side. This is the best way to put trans, and you try to do it on the side, it would be crazy. But I'm gonna go ahead and drop the transmission in. There's lettering right, left, and center. We want to make sure we get all the letters are facing up. Rod here, and go ahead and get the first two in there so then they stay. This last one, bugger. Boom. There's neutral, holding on to the shaft. It's not spinning. The gears are spinning, but the shaft's not. It's neutral. Second. Now the shaft is spinning. Third, fourth, whoop. Fifth. So they're all working. It's tough when you don't have the detent and everything on the outside, the spring loaded, so you just got to see the forks move. But it looks like we have good movement. Back down, back down, back down, all the way to first. neutral. So we're good. We'll put a couple more things together and we'll get ready to put the counterbalancer in and put the case on. Okay guys, we got all the bolts in. Now we want to make sure we torque these. Try to crisscross pattern. The manual tells you 1, 2, 3, but as long as you go crisscross and don't over tighten them, they will strip out. So use a torque wrench. I got a torque wrench here that calls for like 6 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with my little small drive one here, and we'll move on to getting this right side of the engine put together. Get the oil pump and the timing chain gears, the clutch, and get the shifter and everything hooked up on this side. Get the cover back on it and get this buttoned up for right now. But we got all the old parts out here. I got to do some cleaning first. And we got some of the new parts. Got a new Tusk clutch kit we're going to try out in this bike. And of course, new gaskets and locking washers, new timing chain. One of those things, always might as well, if you're taking it this far down, put a new timing chain in there. They do stretch over time, just like in your cars. If you're going to tear your engine down in your car that has timing chains or timing belts, for sure do that. Oil pump and some O-rings and stuff. But yeah, we have the full box of gamut of parts. This is the new cylinder, new valves, valve seals, gaskets, everything we have to put this motor back together. So let's get this right side together and move on, and we'll get the left side and the flywheel and stuff put back on it and be ready to put the top end on. Okay, so we got the shift shaft in there. We got the linkage hooked up, the spring onto the shift drum. So I just always triple check this. We checked it in the beginning when we first put the cases together, but let's check it again, make sure our shift shaft and the spring here and everything is working. So right now we're neutral. I'm spinning the counter shaft, which is right here. Spinning the counter shaft, and I'm spinning the balancer here, the clutch. So it's in neutral. You can see it's on the detent there. So let's go through the gears. You might have to spin these shafts, the counter shafts, because they'll be having a little pressure when the motor's running, obviously. So there's first. Again, you got to put a little tension on them sometimes. There's second, third, fourth, fifth. So then down, fourth, third. Oh, and I went right to neutral. Second, third. So there you go. So it's working good. Let's move on and get the rest of this put back together. All right, so let's get this oil pump on here. So try to take some engine oil, some fresh engine oil, and let's you can put it in the oil pump and you can spin it, kind of almost like prime it up a little bit. I like to fill it up until I see it come out. There, it's dripping out of the bottom. You can see when I'm spinning and it's dripping. So that's going to help. That's going to help on startup, knowing that there's oil in that pump, so we don't run it dry. Need to clean these bolts off. We're going to put Loctite on here, but it looks like there's some junk on there, so let me clean these off. We got the oil pump on. Now we need to get the timing chain in the timing chain guide. Let's get that installed. Again, new timing chain. Balancer drive gear. It's marked actually. It's got a B and it's got a dot. That dot we're going to end up lining up with the counterbalance here in a minute. So keyways in. So we need to put the oil pump gear on. It has these dots on it. They are to go to the outside. It is plastic, so be careful. Don't drop it. Try not to. I don't know if it'll break, but it's probably reinforced. But it's got a D hole right here, so it's got a flat in it. You got to get that lined up. Slide that on. Got your little retaining clip. Make sure it's locked on there. I spin it around with my finger just to make sure it's locked on the groove. Sprocket's on there, or the gear's on there. Now we got to put the next gear in there. Got your keyway. We got to get it. It is the drive gear for the oil pump. So now once the crank is spinning, the oil pump is running. Got this little washer that fits in there. New locking washer. This is the old one off of it. Again, somebody had this motor apart or something because the little tang is broke or sheared off. So this one does not work. So we just toss it and we put this new one in there. All right. We'll torque that down once we get the other gear assembly here off the counterbalance. We get that put on, and then we can jam something in there to torque it down. But let's get this counterbalance driving. So we got the steel sleeve in there. We got its little keyway, its key. Here's your counterbalance gear. There's chamfers on these. Make sure it goes back in the right way. Line up the keyway. It has a little timing mark right here. It's a dot. This says B, and this has a B mark on it, which we talked about earlier. So we need to spin this motor over. Make sure our chain is out here. So we got the B mark down here, and we're going to line the marks up. All right, that was a little bit of work. You can see the dots there lined up. Probably thinking about it, I probably could have put this on first and put this on before I did this. May have been easier to spin because the counterbalance has a weight, so it keeps wanting to go down to the bottom. The weight comes down, so you have to basically rotate the gear and then spin them down and then get them aligned. But as you can see, that's your timing. You definitely want those meshed together. You can see the dot and the letters there. So that'll set the timing. That'll keep it in balance. It's really keep it in balance. It's not timing, I'm sorry, but it will keep the crank and the balancer in timing. So if you had those off, you would have horrendous vibration and probably wear the bearings out. Okay, now we need to torque these two nuts here and get the lock washers locked down. But this one is the counterbalancer's 41 and the crank is 59. So to do that, of course, they're moving. I got a piece of aluminum. I've used, you can see multiple marks in it. Is we're going to jam a piece of aluminum in between those steel gears to help hold them, basically get them to a gauge so I can torque those two.
Well, guys, that'll be the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed part one of parts, I think 2, There's a lot of clips of putting the motor together just because it's a lot of stuff we wanted to show you guys. I know it was a little bit boring, but if you're yourself trying to build a Raptor 250 motor, it definitely could help you guys. But if you have any other spare questions, go down in the comments, let us know, or email us. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Next week or 2 weeks will be part 2, and I'll be finishing the full motor. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys hit a like and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.